Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Councilman Pelaez and the Economic Development and Workforce Committee, and of course city staff for all the work put into creating this plan. Small businesses, as we all know, make up the vast majority of business in our city. Today we're supporting those small businesses the same way we support our large corporations in many ways. This means investing not only with money, but with resources and tools to strengthen our small businesses. I see these funds as not only pulling small business out of the pandemic hole, but offering them an opportunity to build an infrastructure that will be resilient when the next crisis comes, whether it's pandemic, a weather catastrophe, even a recession. This investment into our small business ecosystem is meant to see them take their business to the next level, not just leave them off where the pandemic started. I am in support of this item, but I want to understand the parameters better. Brenda, can you tell me, can these funds be used to retire debt or pay off judgments, things like that?
I'm also looking at legal to make sure I don't misspeak.
Okay. You want to bring them up here?
Okay, my understanding is no, that per ARPA guidelines, we, not just for businesses, but for throughout the guidelines, the funds cannot be used to pay off debt service.
And Councilwoman, we can confirm that, that's correct.
You're confirming that?
Right.
Okay. I know thank you. I know it's hard to retire debt, but I also know you need to consistently elevate your business and create a strong infrastructure that will allow you to survive. So I'm glad that we're not allowing that. But, you know, it's been mentioned up here, I am a small business owner. As a matter of fact, I own a couple of small businesses, and I have made payroll, and I have sometimes been very close to not making payroll. And I know that those of you in the room that own a small business know that is a really scary feeling. And I've had a lot of discussions with my District 6 Small Business Advisory Committee. Gratefully, there's not just District 6 businesses on that committee. I've had people all over the city that have joined that and really helped to help not just my staff, but inform me about a lot of the items that you talked about today. Of course, access to capital and capacity building. Those are also, they also discuss rising rents. Is that part of the plan? Is there anything, or maybe just in somewhere else in the infrastructure of the city, that we talk about small businesses dealing with the rising rent costs in the city?
So that isn't a specific item that's addressed through this plan, but again, that goes to support the technical assistance, that capacity building to really understand in some cases how to even negotiate rent and to work with landlords. Okay.
So I guess another question I have is if we have that resource already, how do our small businesses access that technical assistance? Is it just through this program if they receive funds, or can small businesses use that resource as well?
So we have a number of business development organizations across the city that businesses can access regardless of these funds. And so there's a strong, robust network that we're certainly looking at enhancing with these funds. But there are, again, resources available to businesses today.
Okay, thank you. I think of Mad Pecker Brewery in my district. They kept every employee through the pandemic, and even despite their economic troubles, and they kept their doors open. Then unfortunately, when the pandemic slowed down, they lost some of those employees to different industries. Or Bach Street Social kept their business afloat, and they're continuing to grow. I feel like those kinds of businesses are the ones that we need to support. We need a more resilient small business community that will be able to do more than just keep their doors open because they paid off debt, but they're able to thrive because this money provided them the opportunity to strengthen their business. I don't want to see these funds put a business right back where they were before the pandemic, as I mentioned before. I want to see them grow and become resilient. I also don't want to see everyone get a grant that will help them just in the short term. These grants should be substantial. I want to make sure that they're not just getting, small amounts of money just to kind of get them to the next paycheck. I want to be sure that they are getting long-term assistance and substantial grants, each of them that apply and are eligible. A lot of the issue here is, is there anything within this plan to create a mechanism to coach or to mentor some small businesses so they can use these funds where they're best used? I think, giving out cash and not offering a resource to mentor, like there's great organizations here, of course, SAGE and also the Maestro, they do that. Are we involving them to make sure that these funds are being used in coordination with those organizations?
So in the administrative dollars for LiftFund, we are requiring technical assistance, and that may be through LiftFund, but also through that referral network, as you indicated, with those other organizations. We are also in conversations with those other organizations for marketing, technical assistance, and the coaching, as you mentioned, and outreach with that $625,000 that is recommended in this plan.
Okay. And when a business applies for these grant funds, and I'm not suggesting that they have to offer up a plan, but how exactly are we going to know what they need? Is there some kind of assessment to help them? What I'm asking is, these organizations that we mentioned, are they kind of upfront in the process, in the beginning of the process?
Yes, so we're working with them so that that outreach, that coaching really begins that July 5th is where we're targeting that, based upon the grant criteria, so that we can work with the businesses on making sure they're pulling their fund, the appropriate documents, the necessary information for the grant application itself, and then also starting to think through again how they're going to use that money.
Okay, and we saw some of the frustration small businesses are dealing with here today because the perceived lack of support. I feel after today that maybe small businesses don't think that we're on their side. And so I want to do our best to get the information out there that we are on their side. We really would like them to have these funds. We're not trying to create any extra steps for them to get these funds. But at the same time, we are stewards of taxpayer money, and I want to make sure that that money isn't just kind of doled out and we never get back with them again to see how they're doing. You mentioned surveys. I don't think that's enough. I mean, they may or may not fill the survey out. They're busy building and working their businesses. So, I think just a little more engagement with those businesses. And not to create anything that will stop them from getting these funds, but if they would like that extra effort, that extra mentorship or coaching, that we have full access to that for them. And again, to make sure that they're not just getting back to where they were before, but they're creating an infrastructure within their own business to prevent this again from happening to their business if there's another crisis. So I'm not really sure I'm getting the process, and I don't know if this is something that's being discussed at EWDC, but if it's something that maybe they could flesh out a little better and we could get a presentation on another time, I would appreciate that. And I know that LiftFund very successfully gives small business loans, but have they had experience distributing grant funds?
Yes, the city of San Antonio partnered with them for the Recovery and Resiliency Grant, so the two programs that I mentioned earlier, and then they've also administered a number of similar programs for other communities. Harris County, for example, they recently administered an ARPA-funded grant program.
Okay, and what is also the numbers that you're talking about here today? How were those numbers calculated, as far as like our base of what we're talking about?
For the grants or for the so we did a significant amount of research on best practices. We also, as mentioned, had those 3 listening sessions, the essay Speak Up, a lot of conversations around what would be meaningful. And then again, how do you really determine, we heard a lot about making sure the funds were going to those businesses that were most significantly impacted. And so again, it was a combination of all of those conversations. Denver, for example, utilized industries that had an 8% job loss. In our case, in working with Dr. Niven and looking at the industries, we're utilizing a 5% job loss. And so again, it was a combination of all of those conversations and focusing on that meaningful impact.
So what are the levels of grant money?
So $15,000, $25,000, and $35,000, again, based upon the total percentage of gross revenue loss, and then the enhancement of construction funds of up to $10,000.
That seems like a small amount to me. I'm just curious, is there some flexibility in that?
The recommendation is for those amounts at this point in time.
Okay. I guess that would be discussed at the committee level as well. And then for those businesses that are listening today, what do they need to do to apply? What's the time frame?
Sure. So applications, the application window will open August 1st. Again, a lot more detail will be available after July 5th with that robust communications marketing plan. We'll be offering technical assistance sessions, webinars, and so forth on how to fill out that application during July.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Cabello Havrda. Councilmember Courage.